I just fell in love with snorkeling and the crystal clear water. I was working on boats during college, studying and diving when I had free time.
What makes it more difficult?
Being alone?
Yeah.
It was pretty easy in the beginning. I was doing charters, so I still had people around pretty often. And as time went on, I'd kind of do charters, say a lot of charters over the span of 2 months, and then I'd be alone for a while. And I really enjoyed that, actually. It was nice to have, like, I know when I'd have my people time and then I could be alone in my home.
Can you live like this your whole life? You know, is it sustainable? And how could you do that?
You definitely can live this lifestyle your entire life. I will say I'm happy I'm doing it so young because it's not easy. I mean, you'll be upside down in bilges, and there are times where it sucks.
All right, Lauren Landers. She's in the Virgin Islands. She's on her sailboat. We're going to get into, I've talked to people that have been Mount Everest and they travel the earth. And I have talked to somebody that's traveled solely by sea, like full time. But I think you're maybe the only the second. And definitely interesting. No one ever that's traveled with a cat. So I know somebody else that does all kinds of, let's get into this. Okay. Where are you from and how did you get into, the ocean?
Yeah, I'm from Joplin, Missouri, small town in the southwest corner of Missouri. And growing up, we would take family trips to the Bahamas every year. And I just fell in love with snorkeling and the crystal clear water. And I went to Fort Lauderdale and for college and got my marine biology degree. And during that time, I became a 100-ton captain. So I was working on boats during college, studying and diving when I had free time. And after college, which was during COVID, I had some friends that invited me on their catamaran, their sailing catamaran, and I took the opportunity because there was not much else to do besides just work during that time. And it kind of kick-started everything. I always wanted to sail, and yeah, I didn't think it'd come as early as it did, but
So when did you start this?
so I became a captain when I was 19 and I started sailing when I was 21.
Wow.
And
And
I
how long
got
you
my
been,
own boat when I was 22.
okay. How long you been doing this?
So sailing on my own almost about 2.5, 3 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, tell us, where have you gone? By the way, those that can't see the video, it's just beautiful. She's got this red mahogany kind of wood, that sailboat, and I could see sunlight seeping through on the
Yeah.
wood. It's just beautiful. Where have you traveled to? Tell us, give us a little highlights of that.
Yeah. So I spent about a year and a half in the Bahamas. So Bahamas, a little few trips back to Florida for boat work and such. And the past 6 months I've been in the Caribbean. And I'll be spending the next 6 months in the Caribbean and then making my way towards Panama to cross the Pacific.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you haven't done that before.
No, have not done that before.
Do you go through the Panama Canal?
Yeah. Gone through the
In
canal.
your little, with like big container boats, going, passing each other, and you, little Lauren Landers, in your sailboat going there too. A lot of people do that.
Yeah, actually a lot do. Yeah, I know people that crossed last year, they're crossing right now. And it's like a really big deal. And it is a very big deal, but so many people do it that it doesn't seem as crazy anymore as it did a couple years ago.
Now you've navigated all through the Caribbean. What are going to be the challenges? Are you prepared for that? How are you going to navigate through that?
Yeah, so I knew the Bahamas very well. So that was kind of my training ground. And I wanted to come to the Caribbean because I'd never been. So it was going to be actually learning things that the Bahamas, like I like to say this, I knew where every trash can was that I could go to. I knew where every dinghy dock was. I just knew all the little things that it normally takes us maybe a week to learn on an island and asking cruisers around. I just knew all of that in the Bahamas. So I wanted to do the Caribbean before the Pacific to kind of learn how to cruise and go to places I don't know. And I'd say that's the biggest challenge is just fun part is learning each island and all the little secrets of each island.
Uh, you're alone a lot.
Yeah.
What you got your cat, I know. Now, let's talk about the dynamics of that. Um,
Yeah.
was that, harder in the beginning, easier in the beginning, harder now? What makes it more difficult? Let's tell us, give us a scope of that.
Being alone.
Yeah.
Um, it was pretty easy in the beginning. I was doing charters, so I still had people around pretty often. And as time went on, I'd kind of do charters, say a lot of charters over the span of 2 months, and then I'd be alone for a while. And I really enjoyed that actually. It was nice to have like, I know when I'd have my people time and then I could be alone in my home for a
Yeah.
while. And I really like the back and forth. But now that I'm not doing charters anymore, it has been an adjustment. I really love sailing alone. It's just so freeing and I really love that. But when I get to an island, it is nice to know people and be able to go out to dinner with friends or go snorkel or hike with friends. And being in the Caribbean, there's actually a lot of cruisers and we buddy boat a lot. I'm buddy boating with another boat right now. So we cross paths, we'll get in anchors together and it's nice. But I do like my alone time and there's challenges like when it comes to lifting heavy things on the boat or needing to go up the mast. I've been pretty lucky so far in that I've had someone around to put me up the mast whenever I've
Yeah.
really needed to.
You know, this is definitely, as far as volatility, a lot involved. You know, what are some things that really stand out where you've been in danger or, close calls or, just across the board, things like that? You're putting yourself in a position, it's not normally like, you're not working out of the house,
No,
so, take us through some of those.
I would say the thing that stands out to me most is technically my second or third week of owning this boat. I just had a brand new engine installed in Puerto Rico because the engine was 30 years old. So I bought the boat with a brand new engine, sailed it to Florida. It did great. So that was a 7-day sail. Everything worked great. I got back to the Bahamas and I had friends come on for a trip for New Year's. And day 2 of that trip, my engine wouldn't start. And then we eventually got it to start. But then the next day, it hydrolocked, which meant that water came in and the engine would no longer work. So we sailed from there to Nassau, which was about 35 miles with no engine. And I had help at that point because all my friends were there, but I couldn't use the windlass to pick up the anchor because I couldn't use the engine to charge the battery. And then I had to sail from Nassau to Fort Lauderdale, which was about 150 miles with no engine, which is a pretty big trip. It's about 24 hours. And I did have someone fly in and help me out with that one. He was supposed to come on a charter, but he wanted the whole experience. So it worked out really well because I had someone, but the autopilot wouldn't work because there wasn't enough battery power. So it was hand steering, no engine, and getting into Fort Lauderdale. And I'd say that was a big test, but my confidence in my sailing went up a lot during that. And it's prepared me for a lot. I do come into an anchorage and I have a game plan of if my engine doesn't start back up after this sail,
Mhm.
I'm confident that I can go drop the anchor without the engine if I needed to. And then there's been a time where my shaft seal started leaking and my bilge pump went out the same night. So I woke up to water under the floorboards just rising.
Mm.
And I was lucky again. I had some friends from another island. They were there commercial fishing and we eventually solved it. But there's definitely been times where I've been happy I've had people around and anything can happen on a boat. So I am grateful that these things have happened because now I know your problem solving just develops over time with the boat. And I think that's something that's really cool about living on a boat is you just start coming up with all these solutions as time goes on. And it's really cool.
Was that the new engine or the older engine that
It
was
was a
problems?
brand new engine that hydrolocked within 3 weeks.
So I
Yeah.
mean, that's under warranty, right?
It wasn't because it was installed in Puerto Rico under they weren't an authorized, um,
Right.
dealer, but I didn't really have a choice because the previous engine had thrown a rod during my sea trial, so the boat had to get a new engine in Puerto Rico.
That is the dynamic of sailboating because you do know how to sail, which is a skill set, major skill
Yeah.
set, and regular engine boats, I mean, what do you do if those go out? You have no sail. What happens? What about those dudes? What do they do?
I've had that happen on one of the boats I captained before sailing, actually. Granted, they have 2 engines, so you still have one to work with,
Yeah.
but on those engines, they have a computer, and I went to start the engines, and one of the engines wouldn't start, and we were 200 miles from Florida at that point, and there was a hurricane coming, like a tropical
Oh,
storm, and one of the engines wouldn't work, and there was nothing we could do because it was the computer that had gone out. So one of them did work, so we used that to move, but it is stressful because I on this boat, I chose an engine that didn't have a computer for that reason.
I That takes a lot of guts to be in the Caribbean between June 1st and November 30th, which is hurricane season, by the way, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
you could say that. I've spent hurricane seasons in the Bahamas, which I would say is riskier than the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I also
Part of you, I see a little smile. Part of you, there's a little bit of adventure there, isn't there? I see
Yeah, I
something.
mean,
Yes.
I think a hurricane can really hit you anywhere. You can have a squall come through at any time, and it's gonna do more damage than a hurricane could.
Mm,
A lightning like, you could get struck by lightning, and you never know what path hurricanes are gonna take, and I think the best thing you can do is watch the weather. So I've spent hurricane season in the Bahamas, and I'm watching the weather every day, and we get 10 days advanced, and we can see something that
right.
starts to form. It's not like
Right.
a tornado's popping up. We have
Right.
5 minutes.
Right.
And granted, you can be in positions where you may not be able to outrun it, and if you're leaving the boat, you definitely wanna get out of the hurricane belt. So, here in the Caribbean, last year I left the boat in Grenada because that's technically below, and I'm doing the same this year, but that's because 'cause I'm leaving the boat. If I wasn't leaving the boat, I would just go wherever I felt and have that backup plan ready.
That's good. You're not on death wish. You're not going like, like in September 1st, you're not taking a trip to the Leeward Islands,
Yeah.
those islands, that's where they form, right?
I definitely wouldn't cross the Atlantic during hurricane season.
Right. Yeah, not on your way to Africa at least. Um,
No.
so I mean, well, let's talk about, where are you now? Because that segues into, where you're gonna go next, but I mean, not physically, we know
Yeah.
but where are you now mentally, your career, everything that's going on with you? Where are you right now?
So this is my first official season, I guess you could say, of me no longer doing charters. I finished charters exactly 1 year ago, and then I pretty much was racing. I was late, you would say, leaving the Bahamas to get to Grenada,
Mm.
and so I spent that whole time just waiting for weather window after weather window to get south, and now it's kind of so I skipped everything in the Caribbean last year. So this year, I'm actually trying to explore some of the Caribbean islands and just working on the boat, getting it ready for the Pacific, trying to work on my online business. So I do YouTube, and I'm just trying to work on that and work on all the other things that come with that and just get that part steady because charters do take a lot out of you and the boat. It takes a lot out of the boat. So I'm just kind of getting back starting that routine of being alone out here, which is nice.
Yeah. No, I saw your Instagram account and it's like it's very dynamic. You have the pictures, your storytelling, what you're going through. It's that's those, and I can see why you're doing well because it's rarefied air to where you can explain to somebody, hey, look, this is what people that are like, working their 9 to 5, they can just look as like, oh my God, this person, looks like they're and it looks glamorous, but also you share, other things too, you
Yeah.
know, but you're looking at it, you're like, holy crap, and she's with her cat. Let's talk about the cat. All right. you bring your cat with you. Um, what do you do? Go fishing, feed a fish, and then like also, how do you make sure the cat doesn't jump overboard? Just tell us about the cat for a second.
So I fostered him, and he was a foster fail, is what they call him, when he was 4 weeks old. And I always knew he's going to live on the boat with me because I just found the boat when I adopted him. I taught him how to swim as soon as we moved onto the boat. And he has a rope hanging off the back. So if he does fall off, which is so rare, he knows how to get back up. When we sail, I harness him. So him and I are both harnessed when we're sailing. So God forbid a rogue wave or something came, we're both harnessed. I know where he is. Food wise, if I do catch fish, he loves fresh fish. If I'm filleting it, he tries to take the fillet out of
Yeah.
the container and walk away with it.
Yeah.
It's just dry food. He does really well.
That's awesome. So now long-term play, what do you got planned? I know you're going to through the Bahamas, but like what's your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year? I don't know if you're planning that far ahead, but that is somebody I want to know what they have planned if they have something planned because it's very dynamic.
Yeah, I've never really had like 1, 3, 5-year plans my entire life. And it's kind of nice. At this moment, I really do need to have a 1-year plan. It's something I've kind of been like, oh, I do need to plan the longest crossing I'll ever do in my life. I should probably plan a little bit of that because that's 1 year out. So
Yeah,
I'd
I mean, I
say,
ask people that quite a bit, but it's
yeah,
living a nice, a lovely Zen lifestyle like you are. You don't have to plan everything out, but it is interesting because you. I mean, can you live like this your whole life? Is it sustainable, and how could you do that?
that's, I like this question because we can also touch on what you're saying about my Instagram and the storytelling and stuff. You definitely can live this life, your this lifestyle your entire life. I will say I'm happy I'm doing it so young because it's not easy. I
Mhm.
mean, you'll be upside down in bilges, and there are times where it sucks. Like, I'll tell anyone that. Like, I want people, if anyone ever wants to buy a boat, I'm like, go spend a week on the boat and actually get into it. Like, if something breaks, go fix it. When something breaks, go fix it because something will break. And you can definitely do it your whole life. And there is planning that goes into it. Like, I know in 3 years, I'm going to be in the Pacific. So I need to make sure I have parts on the boat and food and just all these different things. Because like, you can't get stuff in remote places. And I guess that touched on a few of your questions. But yeah, you can do it your whole life. I'd say it'd be hard to plan for that much, but you just take day by day. And if you love it, you keep going. And if you don't, the worst case is you go back to land, which isn't a bad worst case.
It can be expensive too, right? How do you
It
manage
can,
that part of it?
um, people think you make a lot of money on, you have to be rich or you are rich living on a boat. But the reality is, pretty much every dime I make goes straight back into the boat.
Yeah.
And the best advice I can give is learn, just cook as much food as you can, know how to grocery shop, and also know how to fix your boat on your own. And you can save so much money by knowing how to fix your own boat. And it may take by watching a professional once or learning from another friend, but eventually it adds up and you can save a lot of money.
Well, let's close on that. What are the top 5 things a sailboat captain needs to do?
Um, wow, that's a hard one. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, you need to know how to like check every system regularly. You need to know how to replace pumps. There's so many little things that make this boat operate. Just the battery power, the pumps, um, the sails, the engine, just everything you need to know at least a little bit about each system. And if you don't, go watch a couple YouTube videos or go talk to a friend. I mean, you need to know how to maintenance your engine, definitely. And you can start on the detailing part. There's just so many aspects of the boat you should really at least have a basic understanding of, or be willing to do it when the time comes. I've learned a lot along the way. A couple years ago, I was scared to touch a tiny little wire with the breaker off, and now I can install lithium batteries. So you don't
Number
have
one
to
is you got
know.
to work. You got to know how to work on your boat. That's number
Yeah,
one.
I'd say
Number,
you have
well,
to be
we
willing
do
to
know
work
number
on
two. Number two is you got to cook your own food,
it.
right?
Or have someone. You'll spend a lot of money, especially out here, if you aren't going to cook to some
Right.
degree.
Number three.
Um, I mean, I'd say, navigation, maintenance and navigation are the top two,
Right.
hands down. And there's a bunch of little things that fall under that, but the maintenance and navigation are the most important things.
Make sure that you teach your cat how to swim.
Yeah, if you're going to have the animal on board, make sure they know how to swim, please.
And make sure, right? I'm going to do number five. Can I do number
Okay.
five?
Yeah, you can do it.
Make sure you get an engine with a warranty.
Yeah, and even if you do, they're probably going to try to get out of that one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. So outstanding. What an adventure you're living. Please tell everybody how they can find out more about you.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel, Lauren Landers, and Instagram is also Lauren Landers. I try to stay pretty honest and up to date with those. Very honest.
You do quite an open book, and you don't like paint the picture. It looks glamorous, but you also don't paint the picture of like, hey, look, this sucks, and this is the way it is, and it's out there. You're out there, you know, rowing. I mean, I don't know the mechanism of what you're doing, but you're out there working hard,
Yeah.
surviving out there in the water. It's totally fascinating. So I suggest going to check out Lauren Landers on her YouTube and definitely Instagram. It is fascinating to watch you go through this journey. And thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love it.
Thanks for joining us. Gear up for your next adventure and head over to Bolotor.com to check out the amazing Bolo Pack and their other innovative outdoor gear. Catch you next time.